Welcome to episode 4 of the Contra Account, a bookkeeping podcast.
And welcome to the 2020s.
I'm Darren McMahon from Dardie, and the voice you just heard was Dave Gertler from the Bookkeeping Habit.
That's right. We are here to talk about the bookkeeping and accounting industry, and the reason that 2021 is the first year of the 20s is, as I just found out last night, because 2020 was actually the last year of the 2010s.
How does that work?
I'm not going to go into this right now, but it's worth bringing this up with people who you feel comfortable to bring it up with if you haven't ever had this discussion with anyone and had your mind blown by this fact.
Okay, I'll take your word for that one. Look, we are two bookkeepers based in the Wingecarribee Shire of New South Wales, just out of Sydney. And if you want to know why we're called the Contra Account, you can go back and listen to our first few episodes where we talk about that sort of thing and our different journeys into the bookkeeping industry.
Yeah, so I think one thing we can all agree on is that it's a new year, and wishing everyone a happy new year, and thanks for tuning back in. We hope it's going to be a good year for everyone, and without further ado, we're going to get into episode 4.
So, Dave, what have you been up to over the break? What's been happening with you?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's, last couple of episodes, I think I divulged quite a bit, shared a bit about, an honest download of what the experience has been in the early stages of me being bookkeeper.
Yep.
I think a lot of bookkeepers and accountants like yourself reached a point of exhaustion last year from being overworked.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in a way, the jadedness or fatigue that I was sort of experiencing was partly influenced by me going through my own version of that. I was having a lot of frustration about not being able to get a foothold on the industry, on the career path. And look, that wasn't the end of it. I went further down into that rabbit hole with some time off, and I got some perspective. I got some time off, and I really needed it. And I've come back into this year with a reinvigorated sort of attitude and an openness to the long journey that it is, and a bit of patience. I think is sort of there now that wasn't there towards the end of last year.
Okay. Yeah, look, I think last year was, by the end of it, everyone was sick of the year. I know I was. I mean, for various reasons, but I think the one thing that you talked about there was exhaustion. I think everyone was in the same boat. By the end of the year, it was just a case of, I just want to get to the finish, and however you got to the finish was however you got to the finish of the year. Like, it just, I think it was just really tough for everyone. So, look, I know myself, I can totally relate, and it was a tough year. It was a tough year.
Yeah. Look, but I think that I understand where I've been coming from, and the fact of the matter is, it's frustrating when you set your mind on wanting to be a bookkeeper who helps people from an independent basis, and then you find that it's just not happening, and the journey towards that is a slow one. So, the frustration is still there, and I really wish that I was in a more advanced point.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the only way that I'm going to get there is by racking up relevant experience hours, which I have no problem doing. I have no problem sitting down and doing the work. It's just my employment situations haven't really facilitated for the the timely accumulation of those hours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know, I sat down and tried to work out my, you know, what my relevant experience is actually at in terms of reaching the 1,000 hours. And, you know, I'm about a quarter of the way there, which is really disappointing when I really sat down and figured it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, look,
on the positive side though, that is a quarter. It's better than none.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I'm
not trying to belittle what you're saying, but you know, I tend to try to look at the positive side and go, well, at least you've done a quarter, you know. So.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll get there. I'm going to push on. I'll get there, and I appreciate everyone's feedback. I know that we've been getting some great feedback on Facebook and
we have
other avenues, and really appreciate everyone's contribution and ideas and viewpoints on the industry.
Yeah, no, that's been really good. Yeah. So, you spoke about the job front. Like, what's happening in that regard? Have you got, you know, you're doing some hours a week at the moment. So, are you like looking for more work, or where are you at with that?
Yeah, I am looking for more work. I have 2 clients as a contractor.
Okay, yep.
So I'm working in conjunction with their tax agents.
Yep.
But that's just really quarterly BAS work, and it's not heavy duty. It's not a lot of hours. None of it's payroll.
Yep.
Even. And also I am working part-time for a NDIS support coordination company in the Southern Highlands. But it doesn't amount to more than about 15, 20 hours a week right now. So I'm looking for a second part-time job or a full-time job that will still allow me time to work on these other jobs and you know, but to really bring my workload up to a full-time workload. Yeah. So I'm looking on Seek and stuff like that, and I don't know if you're interested. You know, the kind of positions that I'm looking at applying for are accounts receivable, accounts payable.
Yep.
And there's an interesting position for that at Fender Guitars.
Oh, right up your alley.
Yeah. Well, I need a new Fender Jazz bass, so if I can't
staff discount.
I mean, if I have accumulated my relevant hours in anything, it's in playing the bass. So Soul Origin, the chain of cafes, is also looking for a accounts receivable person. Yeah. And then there's also in the creative field, one of the things I'd like to do with bookkeeping is work in the creative sector. Yeah. And there's a company called Screenwrites, which is about the TV and film industry, sort of copyright and royalty sort of commission funding for its members.
Yeah.
And they're looking for an in-house bookkeeper.
Oh, so that would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It would be interesting for sure. So I'm going to apply for that. UTS is looking for a credit officer.
Okay.
And the one that I thought was really interesting, that actually piqued my interest a lot, although I'm not sure if I'm going to go for it, but it's a job at the Fair Work Ombudsman.
Oh, God.
Now, this is, of all of the jobs I've talked about, this is probably the one that actually has a decent salary. And it's to basically be the person who sits on the phone and answers the calls from employees and employers who want to know, you know, what their rights are, what their entitlements should be. So, and I was wondering, I mean, that's sort of a departure from purely being a bookkeeper, but it's still very much specifically relevant to payroll. And I wonder if sort of fielding questions about, you know, workplace wages, leave entitlements, and other complex conditions of employment, I wonder if that would contribute to relevant BAS hours.
Look, that's a really good question. I wouldn't have a clue. I guess that's a question that would have to be asked of, you know, the ICB or someone, or potentially the TPB. Well, it's BAS related. I mean, payroll's obviously BAS related service, or
Yeah.
BAS service underneath, you know, the TPB guidelines. But look, I don't know the answer to that question. That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, my hope is that it would be relevant, but yeah, I figured that I would have to call the TPB or the ICB to get the answer on that.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, if anyone's listening and thinks that they know, then feel free to reach out on the channels and let us know what your thoughts are.
Well, maybe someone out there actually works for the Fair Work Ombudsman or something like that, and has a similar, or has been down that path previously and knows.
Yeah. So anyway, that's about covers what I've been up to. Obviously, you know, bit of a holiday as well, and getting a bit of sun, and now that the weather's turned and stuff. But Darren, what's been happening with you? How are you feeling in the new year?
Oh, look, I must say, as I said before, when you were saying about how exhausted you were by the end of the year, that's exactly, you know, how I was feeling. And sorry, sirens going past, if people can hear that. Always the way. Seems to be when we record that there's a siren go past.
That's okay. I think it adds to the suspense.
So I am feeling very refreshed after my break. I needed the break. I didn't start back until the 11th of January, so I didn't start back on the 4th. I needed that extra week. If I know from how I felt, you know, waking up on the 4th, I didn't feel like I was in the right frame of mind to go back to work. So I'm really glad that I had said that I was going to come back on the 11th. By the 11th, I felt like I was, you know, where I should be.
Yeah.
Which was good. So I'm really glad.
And are you finding that there's a bit of a backlog to get through now?
Not really. From the people that I've spoken to, even those that came back on the 4th, that first week was really sort of, I guess, at half pace at best for a lot of people. So most people didn't really get back into the full swing of it until the 11th. So it hasn't been too bad for me. I haven't noticed, you know, that I'm now having to run at 150% pace to catch up or anything like that. I you know, even today, I look at what we've got on and I feel like we're on top of it. So that's really good. I don't feel like we're behind at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it's been good.
What are just to interject, what is the next kind of big deadline that BAS agents are working towards?
Yeah, so the next one would be, I guess, the 28th of this month, which is the deadline for JobKeeper submissions and redetermination to go into the next round, so to speak, for January to March. Put in your claim for December. We've got extra time for this one because of the the new year and everyone being on breaks and whatever. We have got till the 28th, so that's probably the next deadline. I feel like pretty much everyone's on top of that. There's no real panic at the moment from people that I've seen. And then after that, obviously, we've got the 21st being IAS is due for January, and then what would normally be the 28th of Feb, which I'm just checking my facts here. Yeah, the 28th of Feb is a Sunday. So the lodgement date for December Bathers. Now I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? I think it's the first or the second. It's the first or the second one of those two dates. When I last looked at it, I did look at it and think that's a strange date, but yeah. So there's a few things coming up, but not immediate. I don't feel any immediate pressure at the moment. Obviously, come February and the beginning of March, people are going to be in more panic mode, but at this point in time, I think everyone's feeling, like there's a bit of fresh air, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is good.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, in terms of that, that's good. I have been working a bit in the break and over this first couple of weeks of January. I have worked on changing some of my processes and how I've been doing things and adopting some new software and, changed a couple of things around there. So that's been good. And, look, generally, I guess I'm in a good headspace at the moment. But we're only 3 weeks into January, so you'd want to be, I think. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good to hear. I guess in the work that I do in bookkeeping, it has felt from the stuff that I've been doing, I have been enjoying being on top of things.
Yeah.
This year, like my business is called The Bookkeeping Habit, and that's because I guess I identified early on that that a lot of the way that I want to approach bookkeeping is just by having regular and sustainable habits with it.
Yeah.
And from a bookkeeping point of view, I think for me at least that means staying on top of bank reconciliations. And so I've been enjoying just at least with the few clients that I work with having everything up and running smoothly as far as that's concerned. So what are some of the things that have been happening in the industry? Have you gathered any kind of sense of how everyone else is feeling?
Look, from what I can tell, people seem fairly happy at the moment, but you never know. These things change, and 1 minute someone can be doing fine, and the next minute there's all hell breaking loose. Excuse me. I have read a few posts from people in various groups. Some concerning stories, and I'm not going to go into them or whatever, but I think sometimes we forget that we're dealing with, well, we don't forget, but the clients forget that, we're only there to help them, and that sometimes they can vent their frustration and take it out on us when it's really not our fault. We're the ones dealing with in most cases, we're the ones dealing with transactions that have already occurred. We don't create those transactions.
Yeah.
So, we may tell them some information, but all we're doing is reporting on things that they have done themselves, and we're just giving that information to them in a particular format or whatever it may be, whether it be a P&L or a balance sheet, a cash flow report or whatever. We're just reporting on, we're reporting the news, so to speak, of what their financial situation is showing. And I think sometimes the clients can take their frustrations out on us, and that's not fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's hard for us to deal with in some cases, and sometimes these things can go a bit far from the client side, and like that's not acceptable. So, I guess that's one thing that I have seen that has been a little disturbing. With that in mind, I think that with everything that happened last year, a lot of our clients are under serious pressure, and maybe they're saying and doing things that they would not normally do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make it acceptable by any means. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's acceptable, because it's not. But I'm just saying that, maybe these things, we're seeing things that what would not normally happen because of events in the past. And look, I don't want to harp on COVID or whatever, but there's still things that are playing out and going to play out for a long time that I think we just have to accept that they're going to be part of our normal life for a period of time, and we just need to get on with it.
Yeah.
So, what about you? Have you heard anything from, people that you speak to or anything?
No, not really. I mean, I know that everyone's busy. I know that everyone who's a BAS agent has a lot of clients that they're servicing. So I had someone ask me to be their bookkeeper, and I needed to find someone to help them because I couldn't provide BAS services, which is what they really needed.
Yeah.
And it's I've asked around a little bit around the area, but I know that everyone is maxed out. A lot of people are very much maxed out. One of the experiences that I've had recently with clients is the issue of handover, where I'm taking over processes from someone who was doing them beforehand.
Yeah.
And actually, this is something that I've pretty much all of my bookkeeping world has been about. This has been about stepping into a role that had previously been done by someone else in a way that I either don't understand or isn't explained properly to me, or is really quite counterintuitive, or just not efficient at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm able to own the territory and just say, okay, look, I need to do this my way. This is fine. You just need to provide me with this information, and I get that information.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not quite that easy. Like, they still prefer to provide certain documents or exports or statements in a certain way that isn't conducive to the way that I want to work. And I think I didn't really say this before, but I think that one of the moments that I had that was required for me to get back on track mentally as a bookkeeper was to recognize that I had been taking on the responsibility of all of these diverse, disparate methods, and I've been sort of blaming myself for not being able to take it on. But I think part of what I've realized is actually in many ways, I do know what I'm doing. Even though I am new as a bookkeeper, I do know what I'm doing. So one of the things that I've been grappling with recently is how to get across to the client or the colleague or the person who is sort of closer to the source of information than I am, that I really need it done this way. Because otherwise I'm just chasing my tail. Yeah. Is that something that you come across, that you encounter much?
Yeah, look, I think we all do in varying degrees, and I think that's one of the, I think when you're working in practice probably even more so, but I mean, I guess it happens in all roles.
Mm.
But especially when you're in practice, when you're dealing with multiple clients who are in multiple different industries, with different methodologies and different ways that they go about it, even to pretty much, well, I work with a franchise group, and I work with a couple of the different businesses within that franchise group.
Mm.
Now, even though they're in the same group and they're doing the same job, their businesses are totally different in the way that they run.
Mm.
Now, the processes for one don't really correlate with the process for another because they are varying sizes. But I think we as bookkeepers, that, as you've sort of mentioned, is that one of the challenges we have is to work with people and work with their processes and try and get our processes and their processes and what we do so we can work efficiently. We need to sort of meld those and try to intertwine those into what the client's doing at the same time. Now, sometimes, as you've said, we need particular information in a particular format, and that's a non-negotiable. Some of it just has to be a particular way.
Mm.
Sometimes the clients don't want to do that. Now, it's up to us to try to figure out a way that can work for both parties so that we can get that information in the way that we want. And it's also going to be a way that the client is not going to be put out, or it's going to interrupt their process or anything like that. And that can be difficult sometimes. That can be a real challenge. And I think that's one of the big things. Look, I know myself that I sort of pride myself on being able to work out processes and do things like that. And I know that is much more difficult for some people. So is that what you were talking about? Have I answered your question properly or not really?
Yeah,
I can't remember now.
No, you have. And, it is essentially, it is really a communications piece. It's one of the things that people say, it's really important how you communicate with clients or with people in a job. It certainly is when it comes down to negotiating processes. And I guess when you work with lots and lots of different clients, as you do, I guess that's something that you get a chance to work on and improve.
Correct.
And it also probably helps to have the confidence to know that you can do everything you need to do.
And
you know your job back to front.
Correct.
So
and just on that, just on the confidence thing before you go on, sorry. I think that is a major thing for the industry, is a confidence thing. I think that there's a lack of confidence, and I may have even mentioned this in a previous episode. I think that there's a lack of confidence within the industry generally, and confidence comes across in every part of what we do. You need to be confident in your own ability, and if you're not confident in your own ability, then you either need to improve your knowledge so that you feel more confident, or if you actually do know your stuff but you're just not a confident person, then you need to work with someone or do something that will improve your confidence when speaking to people and all that sort of stuff. But look, totally agree. It is a big confidence game.
Yeah. It's funny because for me, one of the reasons that I moved from a different industry or different industries into accounting and bookkeeping is because I really wanted to just be able to have processes and, expertise, to back me up and to sort of buffer me, because I can be a good communicator. I can be not such a good communicator at times as well. So I really just I want something that I can fall back on, a bunch of skills that sort of renders less important how well I communicate on any given day. But as it turns out, I ended up doing the wrong thing, going into the wrong industry, because you really need to communicate in this industry a lot, especially because there are a lot of people who can't communicate very well.
Yeah.
On a different but related note, this might be a whole other conversation, but one of the comments that we got on a previous episode, or one of the comments that we got on Facebook regarding a previous episode, was about my experience in an accounting firm. And the specific question that was sort of posed was, I wonder if my experience was where the bookkeeping tasks, the magnitude of the bookkeeping task was underestimated gravely. And the fact that they thought that someone who's new to bookkeeping could come in and replace someone who'd been bookkeeping for decades, whether that speaks to a lack of respect for the profession of bookkeeping.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a really good question.
Yeah, I thought it was. And I saw a job advertisement, a job ad the other day that for a bookkeeping role at another accounting firm. And it was like I was reading the description of the job that I'd had. and it said 6-month position only, because this is only just to clear a backlog. This position is just to clear a backlog. So I thought, well, that kind of says a bit of disrespect right there. Like, they're looking for a bookkeeper to come in and clear their backlog, and then there's not even a guaranteed job at the end of it, because, once they don't have a backlog, then what's the point of a bookkeeper other than just to clear their backlog,
Yeah, I guess that can be taken two ways, but I sort of get what you mean. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Karen Bussing, who was the one that asked that question. So
I wasn't sure if we were allowed to mention names.
Oh, look, I'm going to mention her. She is someone that I know. So I'm gonna name her, and I have. So thanks, Kaz, for the question. That was a really good question. And look, my take on that is, look, maybe it was, maybe they were underestimating what the magnitude of what needed to be done was. Maybe they really did. And not so much even from a skill point of view, but from a just general lack of understanding maybe of what we actually do as bookkeepers. And yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I'm not bagging them out, or, accountants in general or anything like that. But I think that sometimes people look at what needs to be done for a set of accounts and just go, oh, we just need to process this, or we just need to process that. Now, look, fundamentally, when you break it down, yes, that's true. But within that, there's a whole bundle of steps, and there's potentially a whole bundle of issues that you really can't see from the surface. And a lot of the time, it's not until you delve into it that you fully appreciate what's required. Now, if somebody had been in that role previous to you, which they had, you would think that they would have a better understanding of what was actually required. And for whatever reason, it doesn't sound like they did. But, yeah, I don't know. I think generally sometimes what we do can be a little, I don't, what's the right term I'm looking for?
Glossed over.
Well, standardized, I guess, is probably the word I'm sort of looking for. A bit vanillaed, I guess. But it's not that simple. Not that simple. But anyway, look, moving on. Have you got any relevant articles or anything that you found? You're the chief article finder and
Ponzi scheme
uncovering
uncoverer.
uncovering of schemes and all that sort of stuff. Is there
Yeah,
anything that you've picked up?
of course I do.
Oh,
All
good
right.
stuff. Let's go.
I'll bring you that in just a second.
So what do you got for us?
Well, what I've got is firstly, I recently saw that Melissa Caddick, who we focused on in a recent episode, there's no real update there, but police believe she may still be alive. So,
okay. So she's gone out underground somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the Ponzi scheme of Dover Heights.
Yep.
And we, of course, at the Contra Account, hope that she's okay.
Yep.
And we'll keep everyone updated on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, Ponzi schemes have always captivated me, and at least in the last couple of years have. There's a great podcast about Bernie Madoff called Ponzi Supernova, which I recommend.
Yep.
The biggest Ponzi scheme ever. But I recently found out about a Ponzi scheme that has a lot to do, is intertwined with the music industry. So I'm not sure if you know of the band, the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, I don't know whether anyone's ever heard of the Backstreet Boys.
Well, I've heard that the Backstreet Boys are back. And
yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. And also NSYNC, another band.
Yeah. Not as widely known as the Backstreet Boys, but still pretty big.
Yeah, pretty big. They had a couple of spin-off acts, like Justin Timberlake. But yeah, I recently watched a documentary about the guy who created the Backstreet Boys, and he created NSYNC as well. His name was Lou Pearlman, and there's a documentary called The Boy Band Con, which just is incredible because, he ripped off the Backstreet Boys. Like, he just wrote these terrible contracts for them. He did the same for NSYNC. And then he used the music industry notoriety that he gained to sort of lure people into this other Ponzi scheme that he'd been running for decades, which was based around an airline that never actually existed and that he'd been running this shell company since the 70s or 80s or something. Anyway, it's a fascinating documentary, and that's my contribution to Ponzi Scheme of the Week.
Oh, okay. So you've only got the one this week?
I do only have the one. Are there more that I should know about?
No. I don't know. Not that I'm aware of, but okay. Well, it seems that I've got more industry news and some interesting articles. So
yeah. Well, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Thank God for our listeners' sake that you've got some more interesting news and articles than I do.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of picking up the slack this week. That's what it seems like. Okay. Now the first one, Accountants Daily. Look, I must admit, I'm not a fan of I'll get it out. Accountants Daily. I'm not a fan. I think that they just go and publish headlines for the sake of headlines. That's my opinion. I know that plenty of people won't agree with me, but that's my opinion. Anyway, they issued an article, I think it was just before Christmas, where it said accounting firms facing grower debtor days.
Yeah.
Now, I look at that and think, what? from everyone that I know, and look, maybe this is only accounting firms and not bookkeeping firms.
Can you actually just unpack the meaning of debtor days?
Okay, so debtor days being the time that it takes to get paid.
Right.
On average. Okay. So if you took, so, you know, if we took my practice, for instance, and said, what's the usual time that it takes for me to get paid? It's probably like 7 days or something like that.
Yeah, right.
I haven't looked at it, you know, in the latest time frame, but I don't really have many debtors because we do a lot of direct debit and things like that. So
Yeah.
ours are always, whatever the terms are on the invoice, we generally get paid in that time frame. So this article was saying that over the COVID period and things like that, that accounting firms were experiencing growing time frames to get paid. Now, from what I've seen, all of the bookkeeping business and whatever, a lot of people are actually saying that they're getting paid sooner. So I really question whether this article was just like a headline or whether it only related to accounting firms. And I don't know whether accounting firms have been experiencing growing debtor days, but the article sort of hinted that it was across the board. But
yeah,
in the bookkeeping space, I don't believe that is correct. In actual fact, as I say, I've seen the complete opposite, and people are being paid faster than what they were before.
Yeah.
Even from businesses that are struggling.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if it has something to do, if it's true that accounting firms are getting growing debtor days. I wonder if it has anything to do with maybe the accounting firm's client base is made up of businesses that are more likely to be struggling with their funds right now.
Look, maybe it's from maybe those ones that are taking longer to pay are businesses that don't have a bookkeeper or a BAS agent or whatever to help them along.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we're not seeing that. But yeah, look, I just found it an interesting article. Don't agree with it, but maybe that is what it is in the accounting space and not the bookkeeping space. But
yeah, right.
anyway, okay. So that was that one. Then the next one, JobKeeper eligibility. So there was a decision handed down by the courts that basically turned previous ATO decisions on their head regarding JobKeeper eligibility.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of this particular case and whatever, but what it sort of does do is open up a can of worms in terms of eligibilities for people who may have previously been rejected, like a company been rejected for JobKeeper eligibility.
Yeah.
I know that the ATO have now sought to go back to the court and challenge that decision. And yeah, look, I guess that's a watch this space because who knows what's going to happen from there. There has been things put out by the ATO, which I haven't got links to here, but yeah, look.
So is the general gist of it that that the ATO wants or the government wants fewer people to be eligible?
No, it's basically, I think one of the things was that there was a business that was they didn't actually have an ABN and they couldn't actually meet the criteria of being a business, you know,
right,
or deemed a business at the required point in time. But then there was this decision that they were in a position where they were eligible for an ABN at the required point of time, even though they didn't have an ABN. So technically, why aren't they eligible? They've met all the other criteria, and look, it's a bit of a complicated situation, but it does sort of then potentially lend itself to other businesses where, were they or weren't they eligible at that point in time because of various things going on with the business or changeovers or whatever. So that's a bit of a grey area at the moment, and look, I'm not exactly on top of all of that, but it is something to keep an eye on moving forward. So I'll try and keep everyone up to date with what's happening with that in the future episodes as I see stuff come out.
What other JobKeeper stuff have you seen?
Well, there's been another test. Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused. That was the other one where there was an ABN. That's sorry, I'm getting confused with my own
That's okay.
That was the one that I was just talking about, and then sorry, the ombudsman has now asked the ATO to also look into other scenarios where JobKeeper may have been like some businesses may have been eligible for JobKeeper that may not have, and like that's another sort of can of worms, and people need to read the article. We'll add the
it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next coming months, in the next couple of months with JobKeeper. Generally, I think
absolutely, absolutely. Now, this is something that I've been following quite recently. This next one, Tyro. Do you know what Tyro is, Dave?
No, I don't. Is it a tire company?
No, they're completely not a tire company. they are a basically they offer a terminal credit card processing service, like say you would go to your normal bank and you get a credit card machine and you process all your credit card receipts through your bank. You have a FPOS service through your bank. Tyro basically are a non-bank offering that same type of service, similar to what Square do, except Square obviously have software available as well. But they allow you to process credit cards. Now, what Tyro's problem has been is that they had an outage with some of their machines. Now, from what I can understand, it was a software issue, and what it effectively did, it bricked a percentage of their customers' machines, meaning the machine was no longer useful. They couldn't use it. It was basically a brick just sitting on the bench.
Permanently, or just for
for that period of time. Now, that period of time for some people is still ongoing. Now, it's potentially been 2 weeks. So can you imagine a retail business, all of a sudden, they can't take any credit card payments? That's a major, major issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if you don't have a credit card machine for 2 weeks and they only can take cash, most people don't carry cash these days.
Yeah.
So that's a major, major issue. And, Tyro's been a major player. They're listed on the ASX. Trading actually got halted. That's how big of a problem it was.
Wow.
Now, their trading has recommenced. Tyro are saying that they are over most of the issues and there's only a small percentage left. But there was an article put out by, someone wrote another article and said Tyro's underplaying it. What they're saying is they're actually under claiming what the real outage is. It's actually much higher. Tyro have come back and said, no, look, that's all bull. That's not correct. We totally refute those claims. The problem is no one really knows.
Especially if it happened to be over the Christmas period.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I think it's been the 2 weeks
since New Year's.
most recently, so it's just been after Christmas from what I understand.
Yeah.
But I guess that's part of the problem here is that Tyro have come out and said, look, we've been really open, and they are putting updates on their website, on their status page and things like that. But with other people questioning it, what are the true facts? Now, the point that I wanted to really get to with all of this is, in terms of our clients, what systems do we have in place? And what backup for those systems do we have, or do your clients have,
Yeah.
when things go wrong? Like in this case, a lot of people have gone out and bought Square readers, because a Square reader, you can go and buy down your local Office Works or at a lot of other, larger sort of electronic and those types of office type places.
Yeah.
You can go and buy a Square reader and it costs you like $59 or something like that. And you can sign up for a Square account there and then, and you're on your way, and at least you can accept the credit cards now.
Mm. I imagine that's what a lot of these Tyro customers have been doing.
Well, yes, I'd imagine, like, there has been specific mention that there's been numerous who've done that. Now, how many of those are going to go back to Tyro? I don't know. But what would happen for those people on Square if, for whatever reason, Square suddenly goes down? Have those people got a backup? I doubt it.
Mm.
What about people on, like, with an ANZ terminal? Do they have a backup? Have they got Square readers sitting around just in case their ANZ, banking ATM FPOS machine goes down or whatever? Probably not. I guess that's one thing to keep in mind, is that we need to be aware of, when things go wrong, what do we have in place as a backup for those clients?
No, totally. I mean, there's so much reliance on technology these days that it's easy to be lulled into what can end up being a false sense of security, because things are so easy and so seamless. But then you realize, if a system goes out, you realize that your whole existence was sort of pending on the channel, this channel being working, whether it's the flow of money or the flow of other things like information. You want to make sure that you have several options. And I mean, even if it means going into the newsagent and getting an old style receipt book, or which you can still get. I don't think you can still get those credit card
swipe machines.
No, the ones where you rack it one way and then you rack it the other way.
The old imprint machine type thing. Yeah. I don't think you can get those anymore.
I reckon if someone wanted to really be like, have a point of difference in retail, they would be the ones that do that. They go they go and buy all of the old credit card impression taking contraptions, and that's, and you go into the shop and you can just hear that.
Well, I don't even know whether banks take those anymore, do they? To be honest, I don't know. I haven't had anything to do with those types of things for a long time, so I don't know. But maybe somebody else knows. Maybe one of our listeners can tell us whether they actually do still have those imprint machines, and whether they're still, whether they're still legal in terms of accepting credit cards. I don't know, but yeah.
I reckon if you go into a David Jones, go and look under the counter, reach for the back of the counter, you'll find an old one from the 80s.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so then my last story, which is again another JobKeeper one, before I just touch on a few bits of industry news. Toyota has vowed to return over $18 million worth of JobKeeper payments.
Wow. Okay, is that to return those payments to employees or to?
Well, the employees have obviously got their JobKeeper top-ups and whatever when they needed to. And basically JobKeeper was as basically a bit of a reimbursement of wages that Toyota would need to be paying to their staff, obviously. So Toyota's come out and said, look, we had a cracking year. We vow to return $18 million worth of JobKeeper that we received.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it's not like out of a, admission of having done the wrong thing.
No.
It's almost like it's like a corporate PR type.
Oh,
thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's good. I mean, that's a good corporate citizen right there, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, since then, there was somebody else I saw, I can't remember who it was now, but there was somebody else has come out and said that they're going to do a similar thing. So I think now it's it may turn into a bit of a status thing where you've returned your JobKeeper payments and said, look, we don't need it. We've realised we didn't need them. We're going to return them. But then, just to throw a spanner in the works, I saw an article that said if they were returned, would they be tax-deductible payments?
Whoa.
Now, I don't know that. I'm not going to get into the tax side of it.
Right. So as in Toyota gets, a tax,
Yeah, are they going to get a tax deduction for the $18 million that they have received? Well,
the question I had was like, if you give $18 million back to the ATO, where does it go? Like, who benefits from that?
Well, it just goes back into Treasury funds.
I guess it would. Yeah. No, they couldn't. No, it couldn't be hand in hand with some kind of tax deduction for them. I don't think so.
Well, the thing is that it's income to Toyota.
Yeah.
So, in theory, it'd. Well, look, I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works.
Right.
Because I guess
because
it's like a voluntary payment and whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not going to get into that sort of thing. I don't know the answer. I don't want to know the answer, but it opened another can of worms.
That is interesting, yeah, because JobKeeper payments are taxable.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you give your income, your taxable income back, I guess it would reduce.
Let's not even go into that. We're not tax accountants, so we'll leave that to someone who knows better.
Speak for yourself, no.
Okay, so Lillette from All That Counts has been appointed Chief Accounting Technician with AAT, which is obviously under the IPA, the Institute of Public Accountants. So that's like a major appointment from what I can understand. My only question with that is, what does that actually mean? And maybe we may have to get Lillette on at some point in time in the future to ask her exactly what that is all about. It was my understanding that AAT was sort of being swallowed into IPA. Maybe this is sort of the bookkeeping arm, so to speak, of IPA saying, look, we need someone who's going to look after the bookkeepers' interests for the members of IPA who are bookkeepers. Maybe that's it. I don't quite know. It's a great appointment for Lillette.
Yeah. No, look, it's
well deserved, but I'm just not sure what that actually means.
Yeah. I don't know either, but no, that is, congratulations to Lillette. I've been sort of following different people on Twitter in the accounting and bookkeeping space, and I know that she's very she has a lot of things to say about the industry, and she is, as the press release says from the AAT, very highly regarded. So I'm a affiliate member of the AAT, and been with them for a while, and I can see that they've been going through a lot of changes, and the IPA is is increasingly important to the structure of the AAT.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and yeah, for sure, it'd be great to have Lillette on at some point to talk about her role at the AAT.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what plays out there. Now, someone who I know quite well, Trent McLaren, used to be with Intuit. Before that was with Eway. Left Intuit, went to Practice Ignition, been working in the UK for a number of years now. He's just come back to Australia and he's got a new position.
Is that at Practice Ignition?
No, he's left Practice Ignition and he's now joined the outsourced accountant as VP of Client Success.
Okay.
So
the outsourced accountant.
Yes.
Is that
an
the outsourced accountant? I don't know what that is.
Okay, so the outsourced
I know what outsourced accounting is, but yeah.
Yeah, so the outsourced accountant is basically a company that looks after offshore workers for firms, here in Australia and whatever.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I should have looked at this more closely, but I can't remember exactly what country most of their staff is. It might be the Philippines. I could be wrong there. I'm not sure. But yeah, so Trent's got this new role, Vice President of Client Success. Again, I'm not really sure what that means though. Like, I guess he's sort of in charge. Well, I mean, this is what I'm thinking, is that he would be in charge of making sure that all of, if say, for instance, I wanted some offshore staff and, I wanted to go through the outsourced accountant who look after a lot of the logistics of that type of thing. I guess Trent's going to be in that position where he's going to make sure that all of the clients that they have here in Australia and overseas are happy with the general service and making sure that all of their program from their client side is running smoothly. I'm guessing that's what that is.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to sort of think about what he would bring from his experience at Practice Ignition into that, and I guess that's going to be highly relevant. Because
yes, look, maybe.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. No, sorry, I wasn't.
I mean, who knows? Maybe the outsourced accountant, maybe their whole organization uses Practice Ignition, perhaps.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I don't know how they work. I'm not a fan of, offshoring.
No.
I know plenty of people who are, and plenty of people make it work and whatever. That's fine. That's what they want to do. That's not something for me. But yeah, like it appears to be a totally different role.
Yeah, it seems.
I mean, Trent's always been in the client space, and the dealing with the clients of these businesses, like when he was at Practice Ignition, like when he was at Intuit, in charge of some of the partners and whatever. So it's a similar sort of role for him, but totally different type of organisation from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's a very, very different situation. And I mean, I guess philosophically it's a bit different as well, because from what I get from Practice Ignition, it's sort of all about automating all of the processes and
the onboarding and stuff like that.
Yeah, and making it so that a small team can act and behave like a larger team.
Yeah.
And
in some ways, I guess, yeah.
you know, in terms of, you know, scaling efficiencies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so then to go to the sort of feels like the polar opposite philosophically of like outsourcing of accounting services is it's scaling, but in a different way. It's using, you know, using human resources to scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to relying more on technology and sort of masterminding of processes.
Yeah. Look, I think that's a future episode discussion. I think we can talk a lot about that. So we might add that to a future episode. Something to have a chat about outsourcing.
Mm.
Now, the last thing that I want to finish off with is that this is something that I think is going to be a real thing in 2021 and moving forward over the next coming years. So there have been over the past 2 weeks announcements of bookkeeping and accounting firms merging together to form one entity where they're focusing on providing that all-encompassing service for their clients. Now,
Yeah.
it's not a new concept for accountants to offer bookkeeping services and, provide the whole lot in-house. That's not anything new. That's happened for a long time. But what I think is interesting here, and my first case here, Amar Latif from Latif Accounting and Carla Hurigan from Infinesse, a bookkeeping, a cloud consulting business.
Yeah.
They have merged together to form Mad Crew Wealth.
Nice. I love
Now,
that.
Mad is making a difference, and then Crew Wealth. Okay. Now, I know Amar quite well.
It's also a great Aussie hip hop band name, Mad.
Yeah, well, maybe.
But I do love that name. That's an awesome name.
Yeah, so I know Amar fairly well these days.
Especially because they spell the mad with capital, all caps. Yeah.
Well, it's capital M, little a, capital D.
Not on their website, but
Isn't it? Oh, well, okay. From where I've seen it, it's been little a. But anyway, yeah, look, I think that's a really interesting play by both of them. Carla has, in the past won various awards at Zero Awards time and other things. Amar is somewhat new to the industry over the last couple of years, but it's been doing a lot in a lot of different areas. Both of them really great people who know their stuff, and so for them to join forces, I think that is a major play.
right.
And it's something that I think is going to happen more and more. And after I became aware that they had joined forces, then comes Bean Ninjas announcing that they were merging with Cloud Counting under the Bean Ninjas banner to offer tax services as well. So Bean Ninjas has been around for quite some time. Cloud Counting's been around for quite some time. Meryl from Bean Ninjas has, been and done a lot of stuff. Not so au fait with Cloud Counting, but I am aware of them.
Yeah.
So, it's not just like it's a nobody. Obviously, Cloud Counting have their own following in the space. Now, from what I understand, they're both really involved with e-commerce clients. So they're focusing on e-commerce clients and at the larger end of town for e-commerce.
Yeah.
Whereas Mad Crew Wealth is going to be focusing on tradies and construction. So
Mm.
not only have these bookkeeping and accounting firms merged together, but they've also merged together because they've both had synergies in a particular niche industry.
Right.
So this
They
is
they were possibly already working together quite
well,
quite a lot.
maybe I'm not
Mm.
so sure,
Mm.
but I think these are sort of major power plays. Really,
Mm.
I'm really liking what they're doing here. I think it's going to be something that's going to happen a lot more over the coming years. But I also feel that there's going to be more and more mergers between bookkeeping businesses or practices to, in some ways form these larger, more powerful bookkeeping practices. I think that's going to happen as well.
Yeah, I've noticed a little bit of that as well, like sort of a one-stop shop for all of your business financial management.
Yeah.
Like there are a couple of firms out there that also they've got the third layer as well, which is CFO.
Yeah.
So they've got bookkeeping team, accounting team, and a CFO. And I think what I'm getting from the way you're talking about it is that there's an equality of importance between the bookkeeping side of things and the accounting side of things.
You have just picked up on the one thing that I had neglected to say, and you are 100% correct.
There you go. If I had a penny for every time someone said that to me, no, I'm joking.
No, you are very correct, and that's a point that I had failed to make. Is that in both of these cases, there is an equal importance on the bookkeeping side and the accounting side.
Mm.
Excuse me, and everything that goes along with them. It's not just a case of doing the tax work and the bookkeeping work is just so happens to need to get done. There's an equal focus. The bookkeeping work is equally as important as the accounting work. And that is something that I don't think people in the past have really, like people that have offered the full service, I don't think there's been that same focus.
Yeah.
But in this case, they've got a person in charge of the bookkeeping and the system side and a person in charge of the accounting side. And they are both on an equal playing, like they're equal level. They're both as equally important as each other.
Do you think that eventually it's possible that they're going to be that they're going to be the same thing? Because just from a technological and behavior design point of view, all of these main software programs are equally useful for bookkeepers as they are for accountants. You can go onto Xero and you can do all of your accounting and you can do all of your bookkeeping. Yet the people, like the professions that feed into these software platforms are still different and of different bases and different backgrounds. And, there's accounting is different to bookkeeping, but really what we're seeing with these mergers that you're talking about, what effectively it's going to mean that they're going to be able to cut all the bullshit and just say, guys, we're all working on the same file on the same cloud software. We have certain accounting tasks that we need done. You have certain bookkeeping tasks that you need done. Let's come up with a plan so that we can all work efficiently, as efficiently as each other.
Yeah.
So that they're all just, clicking on the same level.
Yeah.
That started as a question and then it ended up as a statement.
Yeah, no, look, I totally agree with you. And look, I am hoping that I'm going to have, or we will have Amar and Carla. I'm hoping, I'll have to find out, but I'm hoping that we can get them on the show and that we can have a chat to them just, from their point of view. So hopefully we can make that work. We'll find out.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well,
that's all for me.
Okay. Well, so shall we wrap it up for episode 4?
I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Contra Account. If you want to get in touch with Darren, you can head to Darren's website, which is dardee.com.au, DARDEE.com.au. And on my side of things, I've got the Bookkeeping Habit, which is thebkhabit.com.au. Darren, what's the best email for people to contact you on?
For me is Darren at dardee.com.au.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
David at thebkhabit.com.au.
Okay. And if people want to reach us on the socials, we're available on Facebook, Twitter. All of our episodes are put on YouTube if that's your, preferred medium to listen to these things. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, various other podcast platforms, and also via email at podcastcontra@gmail.com.
That's right. And we love your comments and your thoughts. So keep bring them bring them on. Bring on your ideas and your opinions and keep listening.
Yeah. In the meantime, keep balancing those books and keep your clients out of the news so Dave doesn't bring them on the show. Bye, everyone.